Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Jersey Joe Corner. Today, I am going to do a New Jersey Devils / New York Rangers special today. Since the trade deadline for the NHL is coming up on February 26th, I'm going to have to look at some notes, and I'm going to tell you what I've gathered here from the Devils side. And of course, Cat Friendly is my source, and these are just my opinions. Also, I do have a news journal that I am reading about the rival New York Rangers, and I'm going to give you my interpretation. And so I'm going to be as unbiased as possible, and here it all goes. So this is the New Jersey Devils deadline and off-season moves. These are my interpretations of how I think this is going to turn out. So per Cat Friendly, you look at Ryan Clough. He's a coach right now on the Devils bench. He's making $4.85 million right now. So his contract technically ends July 1st. So with that being said, that gives Ratio extra spending money to reinvest in a trade, or maybe signing a guy like, I don't know, maybe John Tavares. If not John Tavares, then maybe someone just south on the Amtrak line in D.C., John Carlson. Now, the Devils might want to reassess that defensive depth a little bit more. And I personally, with Andy Green, getting older, it's a good problem to have, especially you have cap space as your top asset. And so now, now we go on to Miles Wood. Last season, Miles Wood yielded 17 points and 8 goals in last year's campaign. And this year he has done a lot better handling the puck, and he's also becoming a really fast power forward with a really good cap hit, a very attractive cap hit, I would say. And this year, if you look at him right now, he has 23 points. He's in his last year of restricted free agency. And right now, he has 14 goals in 53 games. And I'm guessing the average extension for Mr. Wood with these past couple seasons. Okay, hold on a sec. That's some good tasty water there. Anyways, I've been thinking about how Ratio has bought out his restricted free agents, as in giving them extra years on top of that restricted free agency. Like recently, Damon Severson had I think 2 or 3 years left on his restricted free agency contract, and Shiro gave him I think 5 years. And what I'm saying is Shiro bought out the restricted free agency and got him into the UFA for longer term, because he felt that with his young potential and his firepower, being a great offensive defenseman, he's starting to get to be more of a proven defender, and he's scored a lot recently, although not at the rate like a forward like Taylor Hall. But I'm just saying, a kid like Damon Severson's really becoming an anchor now that we have Sami Vatanen, and Mirko Mueller is starting to come back, and he's starting to play defense. And now let's move on to the not so pretty. The not so pretty are, should I say, Drew Stafford. He's been a very streaky, and he's been pretty cold of late. And I know he's trying to get some goals and get some points to improve his trade stock. I honestly don't see Ray Shero re-signing him, even though he was signed for cheap in the off season. I just don't see him in the long term of the New Jersey Devils' future plans. He is obviously probably going to get traded for mid-round, late-round pick. And a guy like Ray Shero would love to have an extra pick in this year's draft. I know the team is, still in the playoff hunt, but, the Metropolitan is a very tight division, and it's not a division where you can slip up and down and up and down. So you can't go up and down like the stock market recent. So you can't do that. Anyways, Ray Shero knows that Stafford is not a long-term solution. I would rather have someone like John Quenneville for the long run, and he's up on the team, and he's actually shooting the puck on net a lot. And I was there versus Calgary, and he tried everything he could in his power. Just that Calgary was the better defensive team in that game, and a couple of bounces went their way, especially on that breakaway to Sean Monahan, hands down. Jimmy Hayes, he had an impressive preseason, but he is not what he has lived up to for the regular season. I just see him being waived and possibly staying in Binghamton, but he's not someone that could be in New Jersey's longer term as well. So he's just taking up extra ice time for someone like a Nathan Bastian if he were to be realistically better and ready. But also next season, in the off season, in the summer, Michael McLeod will be ready. So you're looking at two Devils draft picks from, need I say, 2016. First rounder Michael McLeod is 20 years old. Nathan Bastian's about the same age, or a little bit older. So you look at two possible forwards who are coming in. They can definitely take up those guys' spots. And I'd rather see youth and talent versus older veterans that don't have enough contribution and points and better defensive play. And I'd rather see the team progress even better and become more playoff confident down the run. And we just need to keep harvesting better players throughout the year and improve on the offseason. Shero is really doing a great job of finding guys that fit the system. Now, let's get to the better end. Stefan Nason, and he has doubled points from last year's point total of 8. And this year he has 16 points, and he scored at least 5 goals. So if you look at him, he's been a really good bottom 6 forward, along with Stefan Nason. Nason does really well on the wing, and it's great to have guys like that can grind it out and definitely create some speed. But as of late, last night was not anywhere near beautiful. It was just but ugly. It was just terrible in Columbus. I would like to see a bounce back in tonight's game versus Boston, especially after dealing with the whole Marchand situation. It'd be great to have some guys tear down some of the Bruins line. Now, if there's someone who on the defensive pairing that has to get traded, and with Mirko Mueller not playing the past couple games, I really like Mirko Mueller a whole lot. He has a great shot, and he definitely has a really physical presence. You traded a second and a third round to get this guy. You have to play a youngster because he wasn't getting enough time in San Jose with Peter DeBoer. And Peter DeBoer isn't all that big on playing rookies or young guys, for the most part, since I've dealt with him as a fan watching the Devils in the past. So I would like to see John Moore get moved. He's not that physical. He's a two-way player, but he isn't exactly really good with covering the zone, and he doesn't have that strong presence like a Mirko Mueller. I like Mueller more because he's a defensive defenseman, and I always claim him as a Swiss guard because he's a tall Swiss defender, and he exactly cleans out the dirty players from getting close to a guy like Corey Schneider. Keith Kincaid should have had a guy like Mueller in last night to help stabilize the defense. And, I mean, that's just me. If the Devils do make a move, you're probably getting Alexander Galchenyuk, but you're not going to go for Max Pacioretty if he's going to cost you extra. But I know Ray Shero was very close to getting Galchenyuk in the offseason, but in that offseason, it was the first round pick for New Jersey that was also being asked for by Mark Bergevin to give up Noah Juleson, another great player. But I honestly do not see Ray Shero giving away a first, and if that ever happens, well, then maybe I should do another one of these. However, let's go over to the other side of the Hudson, and let me go through this article. And this is by the New York Daily News. It says on the headline, Rangers GM Jeff Gorton isn't ruling out adding another center. So now, the other day, he says, I think it's fair to say we're always looking, but we're comfortable with JT Miller. We know that he can play all three positions. He hasn't played a lot of center at the NHL level, but in his career, he's been able to do it. So in the preseason, we'll look at him there and see where it goes. And so the other day, the Rangers released a letter, and it wasn't very pretty. So I'm going to look that up for you. Yeah, it's loading. Alright, so this is from AOL, and it's done by Thomson Reuters. It's the New York Rangers foreshadow rebuilding letter to fans. So, yeah, this is on AOL.com. I'm going to read this out loud. The New York Rangers are 3 points out of a playoff spot in the Eastern Conference, but it sounds like they could be holding a fire sale leading up to the February 26th trade deadline. A day after its fourth straight loss, the team posts a message from President Glenn Sather and General Manager Jeff Gorton, who's in his second year, I suppose. Right now it's been a couple of years since he's taken the helm from Sather, onto its website and Twitter on Thursday. So yes, that is true. It came out on Thursday. I was taking the train up to the Devils Flames game, and it was the biggest piece of news I read through Twitter, and also the Oilers beat writer Jim Matheson, who has been covering Wayne Gretzky and the Oilers since the early 80s, also tweeted out that article as well, hinting strongly that big-name veterans will be shipped off for prospects and draft picks as the deadline approaches. Now, let me kind of explain this. In recent years, the New York Rangers have been shooting for the Stanley Cup playoffs, and they've been just trying to throw as much leverage as they could, and they did this with trading away Callahan. They've done it trading away John Moore and Duclair. They've done it trading away for Marty St. Louis, and stuff like that has helped leverage those other teams out there, grow their assets and their team. And now, if you take a look at the New York Rangers, Rick Nash is 33 years old. He's going to be hitting the free agent market in 2018 offseason. So July 1st, he's going bye-bye. And if the Rangers had to trade him by the NHL draft in Dallas, then someone's going to pay a big time. It's probably going to be a first, a second, and a prospect, or maybe a second and a couple of really good prospects. So, on top of it, they also mentioned in a rumor that Matt Zuccarello is touchable, and Matt Zuccarello is 30 years old, $4.5 million for the next 2 seasons. So that's going to be some money coming off the books for the Rangers. That means they're going to be paying JT Miller, and maybe they might hold back on Kevin Hayes, but they might pay a little bit more for him if they want to keep him for the short term. But they also mentioned Michael Grabner is someone that they would trade, and anyone who wants to get him right now, he's only $1.65 million, and so that's his cap hit for the time being. And also his stats right now, if I tell you right now, it's got to be 22 goals, 5 assists. Last season he had 27 goals and 13 assists. So if you think about it, other teams will probably be calling Jeff Gorton to make a move. Also, another rumor was Ryan McDonagh is up to be traded for. But do I honestly think that someone's going to get McDonagh? 50-50, but would you trade a top 20 defender? I don't think so. I think you have to hold on to a guy. This guy has a no-trade clause. Then if you have to move McDonagh, he has to show you a list of teams he doesn't want to go to and teams that he would go to. And it gets pretty complicated because of the red tape. But if a deal is inevitable and it does come out to be the right deal for the right team, and I've heard Nashville is interested and possibly Columbus, but you just never know, because I don't see the Rangers willing to trade within the division, and I rather see Nashville get a guy like McDonagh or Rick Nash, because they're going more into it this time of year, and they're trying to win their first ever Stanley Cup in Nashville. So Nick Holden was also rumored, and Lundqvist being 35 years old, and he'll be a free agent off-season of 2021. And Andrei Pavlich is not really that good of a backup either. So now, as I go back to the AOL article, it goes, the second half of the third period paragraph reads, as we approach the trade deadline later this month and into the summer, we will be focused on adding young, competitive players that combine speed, skill, and character. This may mean we lose some familiar faces, guys we all care about and respect. While this is part of the game, it's never easy. Our promise to you is that our plans will be guided by our singular commitment, ensuring we are building the foundation for our next Stanley Cup contender. Okay, well, I know this is it's a little above what I am thinking about. You just can't mention Stanley Cup and get rid of certain guys and try and retool that quickly for a cup run. That usually never works, and it probably never will. And this is a letter that Jeff Gorton and his brass sent out on February 8th. He reads this out as a member of the Blue Shirt faithful, we consider you a part of the New York Rangers family and always want to ensure we share important news about the organization directly with you. Today, we want to talk to you about the future. As you know, since the 2005-2006 season, we have been a highly competitive team. We have played 129 playoff games, won the President's Trophy, reached the conference finals 3 times, as well as the Stanley Cup. While we are proud of all those accomplishments, we didn't reach our ultimate goal of bringing the Stanley Cup back to New York. So as we do every season, we have been continuously evaluating our team, looking for areas that can be improved to enhance our chances of winning. We began the process of reshaping our team this past season when we traded for assets that we believe will help us in the years to come. As we approach the trade deadline later this month and into the summer, we will be focused on adding young, competitive players that combine speed, skill, character. This may mean we lose some familiar faces, guys we all care about and respect. While this is part of the game, it's never easy. Our promise to you is that our plans will be guided by our singular commitment, ensuring we are building the foundation for our next Stanley Cup contender, just like the recent one I read in the other article. There are no fans like Ranger fans. You are passionate, loyal, and true. You will fill the garden every night, and we always know there will be a strong showing from Rangers Town in every building across the league. That's because the garden is very expensive to afford one game. We do not take your support for granted. We appreciate that you have always stood by us, and we ask you to remain by our side as we undertake this exciting new chapter filled with promise and change. We will keep you informed as this process takes shape. Thank you for the incredible loyalty, pride, and respect you showed them to the New York Rangers each and every day. Written by Glenn Sather, the president, and Jeff Gorton, the general manager. That was to their season ticket holders. And that was even shown on the Rangers Twitter page at New York Rangers, NY Rangers. A message from Glenn Sather and Jeff Gorton, which was posted at 1:33 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So let me put this into perspective. This is going to be a rebuild. When they move guys like Rick Nash, Holden, Grabner, they're obviously going to not be as competitive as they were in the past couple seasons. They're going to be looking to have guys like Philip Hedel, Leosh Anderson come back into the fold. So when those guys come in from being just the recent draft picks from last year's draft, they're going to be the core of the New York Rangers for the time being. And I can say this from a Devils standpoint. When the Devils started gaining guys like, well, Pavel Zaha is more of a third liner, second liner at best, maybe just a third line center winger. He's more of a winger these days because you got guys like Mikey McLeod coming up to fill out in center. You have Heischer right now being first line center. You have Hall as your top left winger. You have Travis Zajac who can do the third line center. You have Boyle as your fourth line center. Okay, so let me put this in perspective right there. That means the Devils are about 65-75% the way done with a rebuild. Right now they have hit on players like Nico Heischer. They've hit on players like Jesper Bratt. Bratt has been a great player, a top 9 winger. And he has certainly done very well on the second and third line too. But he's for recently he's been pretty good on the first line, and he also does really well with Nico Heischer and Taylor Hall. They all think very similarly. Jesper Bratt is a really good shooter. He's really good at making plays down low, and he's not afraid to rip it from the low danger zones. And of course, Nico Heischer is really good at stick handling like Pavel Datsyuk and being very smart like Nicholas Backstrom when he is in the offensive zone, and being able to recognize who's open, when not to pass. That's how hockey IQ works in this game. And of course, he does have a nose for the net, and that's what I like about forwards who can be great captains and move the puck around. And Taylor Hall, I've always been a big fan of, and although he lost his point streak last night, he has been phenomenal this past couple seasons, and I obviously like the way he has played to his natural abilities, and not just stick handling, but hockey IQ. He has great speed, acceleration. He can change the game in an instant. If you look at the way he's starting to become more of a vocal person now in the locker room, and I know he's tired of losing, but also Ratio is going to end up getting some sort of winger who could add more scoring depth, and Brian Gibbons is starting to come back. It's just only a matter of time. Corey Schneider is currently out with a groin injury, but according to MSG Networks with Steve Cangelosi, they were saying that we can have Corey Schneider get his first full practice in, and then hopefully have him back as early as Tuesday versus the Flyers. Now, if we can get a healthy Corey Schneider the rest of the way, we don't have to worry about playing Kincaid. Kincaid's been allowing 3 to 4 goals a night. Last night, 6 goals. Cry me a river. I honestly never been crazy about Kincaid, and sorry to the fellow Kincaid fans out there. You'd never want to get too close to another player. So let me put it this way to the Ranger fans who are looking at this soon-to-be rebuild. You're going to go through a lot of growing pains, a lot of screaming, moaning, groaning. You're going to have to deal with not getting personally invested in players like a Rick Nash ever again. You're going to be looking to young guys like Hedel, Leosh Anderson, and it's only a matter of time when you're director of amateur scouting and your GM finds the right players to suit your system. But it's going to take a long time. It's going to take about 5 years, 7 years, if things don't properly go the way. But if I always say this to other Devils fans, my fellow Devils fans, I actually say you need about 3 really good players to hit on every single draft. And remember, Pavel Zacha was not a Ray Shero pick. Ray Shero was then brought in to be the GM in 2015, but he didn't have a scouting staff of his own in 2015. It was Lou Lamoriello and David Conti. It was their last draft together in New Jersey. So that 2015 class was Lou's last licks. That's what that was. So 2016 and onward is the Shero and Castron era. So for those of you wondering why Columbus has pretty good players that they drafted in recent years, please thank Paul Castron, the director of amateur scouting, who is now the DOA of the Devils. So he was responsible for guys like Jakub Voracek and Rick Nash, Venberg, or as you say, Wenberg. I like to Polonize things and Germanize things. So, anyways, EliteProspects.com and a couple other places, Hockey Database is where I always find all this extra information. So, thank you for those who took the time to listen in. Thank you. Have a great day, and let's go Devils.